Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geotab's Wildcard Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Shay Green. I'm a Sales Enablement Manager here at Geotab. For today, we're actually going to be hearing from Anthony Roberts, one of our implementation specialists, and he'll be discussing winter safety. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to him to kick us off.
Thank you, Shay. And hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Wildcard Wednesday session titled Give the Gift of Data for the Holiday and Winter Safety, with a special focus on winterizing your fleet. As Shay said, my name is Anthony Roberts, and I am a customer implementation specialist. I've been in the industry for a little over 10 years now, and I've seen how the colder winter months could affect any industry from utilities and construction to government agencies. It is our hope that with this session today, we'll be able to give you an idea of different tools and features within my Geotab that you can use to help protect not only your drivers, but your fleets as well during the colder months. Now, some of the things that I want to make sure that we'll cover off today in regards to the agenda is staying on top of regular service, not letting your coolant freeze, checking your battery, monitoring tire pressure, staying on top of aggressive driving, and monitoring fuel levels. And as I said before, all of these topics that we'll cover, I will be going through one of our live demo databases to give you guys some examples of different reports, different rules, and different exceptions that you can run to correlate into the MyGeotab database. Now, the first place I'd like to start is with winter maintenance. During the winter months, certain components of your vehicles are obviously at a higher risk of failure, which is why it's important to make sure your vehicle is well serviced when entering the colder months. Bad hoses, belts, water pumps, and spark plugs can result in your drivers getting stranded on the side of the road, which is especially dangerous during the winter. In my Geotab, you can create preventative maintenance plans using our reminder rules. By having these reminders plans in place, it ensures you're on top of the vehicle's maintenance and service so that you don't have unexpected or costly breakdowns. I'll show you a couple of examples of how easy it is to create reminder rules in the MyGeotab database. So first and foremost, in terms of navigating to the reminder rules, you can see here in this screenshot that all you'll need to do is select the engine and maintenance feature, go into reminders, and then enter the reminder rule. So I will show you how to do that right now. So just navigating from the dashboard, I'm going to click on engine and maintenance, and then all the way at the bottom, I have the reminder option. Now, in order for me to set up a preventative maintenance plan, what I'm going to do is select reminder rules. In this reminder rule homepage, I can see all of the current services that have been set up. So you can see that we have an oil change set here, but I want to set one up for winter service, and that's what I'm actually going to call this. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to call this winter service. Now, under the reminder rule type, this is essentially just to let you know what type of reminder it is that you're referring to. So you could see some common ones: lease expiration, oil change, tire rotation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this one as a service check. Okay, then you can see there's three different options in terms of how you can create reminders. Now, for this particular one, I'm going to set this one to occur every 12 months, just because I want to call it winter service so that we know to check those specific parameters of the vehicle. But if you think ahead when you're looking at oil change, tire rotation, license sticker renewal, smog tests, anything like that, this is where you're able to create those preventative maintenance plans. So this winter service, when I'm creating, like I said, I want to create to occur every 12 months. Okay. Now, at the bottom here, you can see you could also create reminders based on engine hours as well as mileage, like I said before. Now, the second thing I want to do is I want to go into the vehicle tab, because now I want to apply those services to the vehicle that I want to be able to receive alerts or run these reports on. So I'm going to hit my drop down. I'm going to select all that is visible. And here is where, if you see this note here, please record the information for the last time this maintenance was completed. This is where I can now say, okay, the last time this vehicle had a winter service check done was November 15th. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to select November 15th. And then for this vehicle, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select November 1st. Okay, so now that I have both of these services input in the system, when I now save it, when I go into this winter service, you can see that it's a service check reminder. It's going to occur every 12 months. And then when I go into my reminders due section, I can now navigate to show any upcoming due periods I have. I could put in advance. So I could say, hey, if anything is due within the next 2 weeks or 30 days or 45 days. And remember, these are all in accordance with some of the different reports that we have available here as well. One of the key reports that I would encourage you to use when you're setting up preventative maintenance would be if you access the marketplace and you type in dynamic vehicle maintenance report. As you can see, it's a free report that you can utilize, and it allows you to input those preventative maintenance plans that you created, and you could set when you want those reminders to occur. So it's only going to send you out a copy of this report if any of your vehicle's service is upcoming based on the time span that you've inputted here. Now, going back into the slide, so maintenance was the one thing. And for that, like I said, I just created a quick little service plan for us to go in. And we know that every 12 months, we're going to get that alert. Hey, it's November 1st, November 15th, whenever you guys feel relevant for your fleet to get those vehicles into service to prepare them for those winter months. Right. The next thing I want to move into is not letting your coolant freeze. Now, it may be something that you don't always think of, but checking the coolant in your vehicle is a vital part of making sure your fleet is prepared for the winter ahead. You can check your coolant temperature and levels directly in My Geotab. You can then set rules around these parameters that would allow you to receive real-time alerts. Depending on where you are in the world, your profile can be set to either metric or imperial settings. So as you can see, I currently have mine set to metric, but for those of you in other parts of the world, you can change it to imperial or whatever is relevant for you. In these screenshots, you can see I'm looking at two different things here. So this top one up above here, I'm looking at the engine coolant temperature. So this is just running a measurement report. And then at the bottom here, you see that you do also have the ability to create a rule that will alert you when the engine coolant temperature drops below or goes over a certain percentage. So for many of the things that we go through today, I'll be showing you how you could run a report on them just to monitor, as well as being able to create an exception rule using our rules database to trigger a real-time alert for it. Now, going back into the database, if I wanted to look at the vehicle's coolant level or temperature, I would navigate to engine and maintenance, then engine and device, and then measurements. Okay. Now, once I'm in measurements, I have the ability to look up a specific date range if I just wanted to look at today, if I wanted to look at yesterday, or if I wanted to look at last month. I can choose the vehicle or the vehicles that I want to look at. So I'm just going to leave both of them there. And then specifically, you can see the different diagnostics that you could look up. So I want to look up the coolant, the engine coolant temperature, and the engine coolant level. Okay, and then now when I run this, you can see it's giving me the measurements for both those vehicles in regards to the temperature. You could see the high point and the low point of both the vehicles as well. Now, because I ran it for an entire month, if I select it, you'll be able to see all of the different times that the vehicle registered their temperatures. Same with the following vehicle here. Now, one of the key things to remember in the My Geotab database is essentially anywhere you are in the database, you can always run a report. So if you hit this report dropdown, it will give you the ability to either A, run a standard report, or B, an advanced report. And the advanced report obviously is going to give you some additional details over what the standard report will do. So at any time you're navigating throughout any feature that you're looking at in the database, you can rest assured you'll always be able to run a report. Okay, so that's one thing, being able to pull up the measurements. And you could think of how many ways you guys can be alerted in terms of potential engine coolant that's dropped down low, below certain levels or to certain temperatures, because these are things that over the length of time can cause really costly damage to your vehicles. Now, if I wanted to set up an alert that's going to tell me when a vehicle drops below a certain level for their coolant or below a certain temperature, if I navigate to the rules and groups and rules, I can select add. I can now go in and I could create my own exception rule around the vehicle's coolant. So if I go into conditions and then I select add in engine, you can see we were just in the measurement section. So if I go into measurement, you can see that I have the ability to create a report that says, hey, let me know if my engine coolant temperature drops below 25 degrees Celsius, for example. I can set that rule in the database, and then now I can go and I could create a notification. Do I want to receive a real-time alert? Do I want to add an alert that will pop up in the database? Do I want to add driver feedback? So this would be an auditory tone within the vehicle to alert the driver that something needs to be done. So when it comes to notifications, there's a few different ways that you can have those alerts set up, but you have your common ones by simply adding an email. So if you want to add the emails of your supervisors, dispatch managers, whoever the case may be, you'd be able to trigger an alert to go to those specific individuals. Then for those folks that will be on the database, for a while throughout their daily routine, you could simply add an alert, and that will pop up as a banner just below where it says demo here. And then that will give you the alert that a vehicle has dipped down below a specific level or a specific temperature. So very, very simple to run the report, monitor those levels, and also set up a real-time alert so that you don't potentially let a vehicle go too far having a low coolant level or low coolant temperatures. Next thing on our list is the battery. Okay, now this is obviously a key contributor to service calls, to having to call a tow truck to come and pick up your vehicle because it died in the middle of the road. So having your vehicles regularly serviced should also include checking the health of the battery. This may not normally be an issue during spring and summer, but now your vehicle needs a little more juice. You need more power to start your engine in the cold, and you also get less power from your battery during the colder months. This is a major step during winter to make sure your drivers don't get stranded at any point without being able to turn on their vehicle. In my Geotab, we have the ability to monitor cranking voltage, which is one of the measurements we can use to be proactive in replacing batteries. Through our engine and maintenance tool, you can run a report or even schedule a report to keep you up to date on these measurements. Now, let's take a look at how simple it is to run a report or even set up an alert using our rules engine. So I quickly ran this report here in this screenshot that you can see. You can see out of all the ignition sequences what the cranking voltage of those batteries were. Now you can see the low end of the cranking voltage and the top end of the cranking voltage. So being able to monitor this, you can say, okay, if this vehicle is cranking low consistently, we need to proactively take a look at this and possibly have the battery replaced, right? Because like I said, one of the biggest costs throughout the colder months is having those vehicles towed because the battery just dies in the middle of the street. Now, navigating back into the database. So once again, if we go back into engine and maintenance, engine and device, and measurements, we can also look at the cranking voltage as well. So if I run it for this month for both the vehicles, and specifically, I'm going to pull up the cranking voltage and apply changes, you can see the low end of the cranking voltage for both vehicles and the high end of the cranking voltage for both vehicles. Now, depending on the vehicle, depending on the battery, there may be different levels that you want to be notified on. But let's just generally say whenever a battery cranks below 9 volts, this is where we want to have an alert set up. So looking at this report, I can add this report to the dashboard. So maybe it would be a cool, unique dashboard graphic that we'd be able to look at every day. We could control and customize how you want that report to be configured. So if you want it to update daily, weekly, monthly, you have all those options as well. But being able to look at these metrics, I can see, okay, there possibly was a little bit of a dip in the battery. That could be explained in many ways, but you can see consistently it's over 9 volts. Same with the vehicle at the bottom here. Now, if I wanted to set up an alert to receive a notification every time a battery dips below a certain voltage, just like we did with the coolant level, if we go into rules and groups, we go back into rules, and then when we set those conditions, you'd be able to see cranking voltage in there as well. Okay, so I could tell the system to send me an alert every time a vehicle, goes below 8.5 volts. Once again, being able to set those notifications via email, a pop-up alert, or in-cab driver feedback. These are all different ways that you can be alerted. Now, one of the things I did not go over with the coolant is being able to run this as an exception report. Any rules that we create, they're fed into the rules engine. So I can go into my exceptions and I could run a report for anything or any vehicle that I want to, specific to those exceptions we created. So if I wanted to go in and I wanted to run a report on battery drain, you can see that I could just apply that report, run it just for that vehicle for any length of time that I want, to be able to see if I had low cranking voltage or if I had battery drain. Now that's the key thing. Any of these rules that we're creating, we could create as an exception report, which means we've got the ability to add it as an emailed report, so we could configure it as a report to be emailed off at a specific time frame, as well as creating the report for it to appear on the dashboard. The next thing I'd like to speak to is tire pressure. Now, driving in the winter could mean dealing with a mix of snow, sleet, and ice, depending on where you're located. Driving can be difficult and sometimes dangerous due to those slippery conditions. Having the right set of tires, such as winter or studded tires, can offer huge advantages when traveling in not just snow, but cold conditions as well. Below 7 degrees Celsius, regular tires or all-season or summer tires harden and begin to lose their traction on the road. Now, I just wanted to throw an example out there of how tires really can affect you. Now, in Quebec, which is a province here in Canada, winter tires are mandatory for vehicles registered in the province. During the winter season, from December 15th and March 15th, it's required that all vehicles have winter tires. As a result of the change in this legislation, there is a 5% reduction in road accidents and a 3% decrease in related deaths and serious injuries based on findings from a 2-year study by the Ministry of Transportation. Now, let me show you how you can set up a rule to be alerted if your tire pressure gets too low in a vehicle. And remember, like I said, anything that we're creating in the rules engine or as an exception, you can build into a report. Going back into the database, once again, going into engine and maintenance, engine and device, and measurement, this is one of the areas where you'd be able to go in and run the report based on that. Moreover, going back into the rules for us to be able to create a real-time alert, and this one is a little bit unique because once you're in conditions, one of the things you'll notice for tire pressure is that you have 4 different rules that you can set up, right? You have the tire pressure, the front left, the front right, the rear left, and the rear right. Each of these you have the ability to set as its own real-time alert. Now, keep in mind, Right here, we're looking at pascals, and you can easily convert these different measurement types in the reports as well. Okay, so when you're going through and creating it, you can easily change this, convert 30 psi into 20,800 pascals for you to be able to get that correct conversion. But on the report end of it, we can also configure it so that it's showing you the psi rather than pascals as well. Now, like I said, once again, and just to reiterate, whenever we're creating any of these rules in the database, we can create exceptions for it. Now, I continue to mention exceptions because at the end of the day, you can create one report that is looking at all of these metrics that we just covered, right? Because when you're creating the exception report, you're essentially creating it based off of the rules you want to view. So if I want to come in here and I want to create an exception report to appear on my dashboard, I can just quickly create an advanced exception report. And then now, going to the bottom here, you see I could select the exception rules that I want to appear on this report. So if we're setting up tire pressure, if we're setting up coolant levels, if we're setting up battery voltage, these are all things that we could put into one report. And then we can build that report out to be emailed, to appear on the dashboard. We can attach a cool little graph onto it. So when you're looking at it as a dashboard graphic, it's giving you a high level view of the content within that report. The next thing on the list is staying on top of aggressive driving. This is a big one. Aggressive driving is one of the key contributors to vehicle collisions and accidents throughout the year, and this only increases during the winter because of the slick driving conditions. Setting real-time alerts, running exception-based reports to capture the amount of incidents or percentage of times that vehicles or drivers are breaking exception rules. We can also set it based on vehicle classification. So whether the vehicles are light duty, medium duty, heavy duty, we can attach those different duty classifications to the vehicles so you're getting correct and accurate data from those vehicles. We do have a couple of different reports in the database available to you to measure these. One of the first ones is the one that you're looking at right now, the aggressive driving report. And you can see the aggressive driving report looks at every instance of hard acceleration, harsh cornering, and harsh braking. Another one of my favorite reports is the safety scorecard. Now, as you can see, the safety scorecard you can utilize as a report to decrease the number of aggressive driving behaviors and speeding violations. This will then reduce the number of accidents. It shows you at a very high level company view how the vehicles are being driven. Now, by default, we have these 6 safety measurements that we use to create this report: harsh braking, hard acceleration, harsh cornering, speeding, seatbelt violations, and then speed overage. So whether you're in imperial or metric, you're either looking at 90 miles per hour or 145 kilometers an hour. But remember, using the exception rules, we can create anything we want. We could customize these current rules to really cater to what your fleet needs to focus on. Now, these scores are also based on the miles driven. So vehicles that are driven more frequently, the scores start to affect them less than vehicles that are driven, not as far as other ones. Now, this also gives you the opportunity to train your drivers and avoid accidents due to the above driving behaviors. And like I said before, these are also based on vehicle classification as well. Now, I want to hop into the database to show you an example of the safety scorecard. So looking at this graphic, and like we mentioned earlier, we could configure this graphic to update every hour, every day. It could be looking at last week's information. It could be looking at the previous 7 days. There are a lot of different ways that you could configure this report. But as you see here, I have it just looking at last week. Now, when you open up the report, it's going to give you the data in regards to the average fleet score. So you can see for the 2 vehicles, one vehicle had 100%, the other vehicle had 57.3. you could see how the rules are weighted in terms of what is being scored higher. So you can see excessive speed has the highest percentage of it, and then hard acceleration, harsh braking, and harsh cornering each share 10% of that weighted rule. Now, for each of these safety metrics that we're looking at, each driver or each vehicle receives a score. Now, those scores will obviously give you an overall total score, and then more towards the right of this report, you can see the total number of occurrences that each vehicle had. So you can see here, this vehicle had a lot of speeding events and a lot of hard acceleration events because they scored 0 on both of them. And you could see there was 95 hard acceleration events, there were 69 speeding events, 27 seatbelt, 39 cornering. So this really allows you to look at each of your individual drivers or the vehicles and be able to assess, where do we need to focus our attention in terms of at-risk drivers versus who's doing a good job and we really don't need to spend much time coaching them up. The next thing I want to speak to is monitoring your fuel levels. Of course, the last thing you want is for a driver to get stranded in dangerous conditions. So encourage your drivers to always keep their fuel level maybe above half a tank. And if that fails, you can set rules to monitor fuel level and even get notifications if your fuel dips below a certain percentage or even a certain level. For diesel fueled vehicles, we can also measure and monitor the diesel exhaust fluid as well as the diesel particulate filter. Now, I quickly want to show you how easy it is to go into the database, run a report based on fuel level, and then once again, being able to create a rule to trigger a notification for low fuel levels. So going back into the dashboard, once again, entering engine and maintenance, engine device, and measurements, we can then go in and let's look at this week, and we'll look at both our vehicles here. And then I just want to look at the engine fuel, the fuel level, and the fuel percentage. So for both of these vehicles, you can see the fuel level percentage. Now you can see what it was last known to be at, so 45.5%, and then you could see where it's been on each of those days that the vehicle was driven. Okay, so like I said before, we could easily run this report. We can create this report as an exception report to appear on the dashboard, to be emailed off, just so you're keeping in touch with where your current levels are at. Now, if we wanted to go that extra mile and create an alert for something like this, once again, simply navigate back to rules and groups, back into the rules. We could add this new rule, and I'm just going to call this one low fuel. I'm going to go in and set the condition under engine, measurement, or data. And then I am going to select fuel level percentage. And I want to receive an alert if the vehicle gets below 15%. Now, how I want to receive an alert, once again, is based on how you feel is the easiest way for you to be able to receive these alerts. So I'm just going to add an urgent pop-up. Okay, I'm going to use the device template there, and then I'm going to select and add it here. Now, when I set this rule, what's going to happen is it's going to trigger a pop-up, in a red banner up above here, to indicate that a vehicle has reached below the 20 to 15% that I had selected for low fuel measurement. So once again, you've seen the report based on the fuel level, and then you see how we can set an alert or a notification based on those low fuel levels. So I'd like to thank you all for attending today's Wildcard Wednesday session. I hope you were able to take away some valuable information from today's session and put it into action in your fleet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony. We do have a couple of questions that came through here. The first one we have is, will the engine readings be available in Imperial US readings for reporting purposes and notifications for US mechanics to read easier?
Absolutely. If I just pull up my profile here and just so it is only popping up in that manner because I have some of my settings set to metrics, but as you can see here, you can create your own regional settings. So you can have it in US Imperial, you could have it in miles per gallon over liters per 100 kilometers. You could see also for the electric fuel economy as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next question that we have for you here is, are you seeing more data with cranking voltage going below 9 volts in newer vehicles?
That is a very good question. And I honestly can't give you 100% answer on that. I could really only tell you from what I've experienced. But it is possible that in some of the newer vehicles, we have been seeing, lower cranking voltage below 9 volts. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, but it seems to be pretty across the board. But like I said, this is just my personal experience from the data that I've been looking at.
Awesome. Next question that we have for you, Anthony, is regarding notification alerts. Can I use multiple ways like an email plus driver feedback?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that is, I apologize, that is one thing that I should have mentioned. When you're setting up the rules, it is very possible for you to have notifications via email. You could have also notifications via alert, and you could also have driver feedback as well. Now, for those of you that want to get into some of the more advanced ways of receiving notifications, maybe through HTTP or GET posts, these are different features that you could use within the rules and exceptions database. But yes, to answer your question, you could have multiple forms of receiving that alert, whether it's email, text message, or just a pop-up banner.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Anthony. It actually looks like that is the last question that we have for today. So that will make it a wrap for this week's Wildcard Wednesday. So I want to give a big thank you to Anthony for joining us today, sharing this presentation, diving into the database with us, and answering all of the questions. If you guys do have any further questions regarding today's topic, don't hesitate to reach out to your account manager or your reseller and get those answered. And I do want to say this is our last Wildcard Wednesday for 2020, and it's also my last Wildcard Wednesday as your facilitator. So just wanted to say thank you to everybody who has put up with listening to me talk for longer than we anticipated. But thank you so much. It's been a joy. But with that being said, until next time, I'm Shay Green, and thank you so much for joining us today for Wildcard Wednesday. We'll see you guys next time. Same Geotab time, same Geotab channel. Thanks so much, everybody.